Hey, before you continue listening, I have an incredibly bold challenge for you. Try to think of nothing at all. No memories, no plans, no names, just a complete blank. Can you do it? In just a few moments, your mind intruded. A thought sparked like a flash in the dark. And that very moment revealed the strangest truth, that something exists instead of nothing at all. Look, right now you're sitting there breathing. Light is pouring into your eyes, air is filling your lungs. Your heart, a tireless machine, is still beating relentlessly, and you're almost completely unaware because your body is so clever at hiding all its efforts. And now, broaden your gaze a little, look around you. The chair is here, the floor is here, this room is here, and this planet is here. Our planet is spinning at a dizzying speed without needing any permission. It's not trying, it's simply happening. This is astonishing, isn't it? Existence just is. No warning, no instructions, no explanation. We often call it normal, but in reality it's not normal at all. It's incredibly strange, and I want us to explore that. Don't get me wrong, I'm not talking about ghosts or spooky stories or supernatural mysteries. I want to talk about it very clearly, because hidden deep within our everyday lives is a question that sounds simple, but trust me, it's the sharpest question you can ask. You know, our science is incredibly powerful, and physics is even more extraordinary. These aren't flowery words, this is raw reality. We can predict solar eclipses down to the second. We can launch sophisticated machines all the way to Mars. And that's not all. We can measure time with astonishing precision to the point where we can detect how a mountain changes the flow of each second. We can describe mysterious black holes. We can write equations for atoms. We can even model the early universe. However, there's something interesting here, and that's a limit. Not a failure, mind you, but a boundary, a clear definition of what the scientific method can do. And this is the question hiding right in your living room right now. Why is there anything at all? Let's be clear about this. I'm not asking why your chair exists or why the sky is blue or why you were born. The real question is, why does reality exist? Why is there this world? Why is there something instead of absolutely nothing? When faced with this question, I find people often have two rather lazy reactions. One group gets incredibly excited, craving a final answer, an absolute conclusion, a bottom line for the entire universe. And the other group, they get annoyed, dismissing the question as meaningless, as if it's just a word game. I don't want either of those reactions. What I really want is clarity. All right, then let's slow down a bit and start with the smallest things. You wake up in the morning, there's a coffee pot waiting on the stove. You might ask, why is the coffee hot? Easy, because there's a flame burning. That flame heats the metal, and the metal transfers heat, warming the water. And the water, of course, heats the coffee. All right, but then you ask, so why is there that flame? Simply because you lit it. But then you ask further, why does the match burn? That's because friction increases the temperature, and a chemical reaction occurred. But then another question arises. Why does that chemical reaction give off heat? That's an interesting story, because electrons rearrange themselves and energy ultimately turns into motion. And that motion, in turn, becomes heat. You see, you can just keep asking why? And here's the really interesting part. Most of the time, science can give you an answer. Science will reveal to you a tightly linked chain, where one cause leads to another, one link follows the next. And believe me, physics is exceptionally good at tracing these causal chains. Have you ever wondered where everything began? Let's rewind a bit. From the coffee you're drinking, we delve into molecules, then atoms, then fundamental particles. Or from yourself, we expand outwards to Earth, the sun, distant stars, and even vast galaxies. And if you continue that journey backward in time, far enough, you'll arrive at a primordial universe, a place that was hot, incredibly dense, and remarkably simple. That moment, we call it the Big Bang. But here's the interesting part. Immediately, your mind will do what it does best. It will utter another why. What truly started it all? What ignited that grand event? And you know what? It's right here that a profound shift begins to emerge. It's not simply that we lack data. You're hitting a wall regarding the very nature of the question itself, because now you're no longer asking, how does this happen within the universe? But rather, why does the universe exist in the first place? And that, my friends, is a huge difference. You're delving into the origin of the rules that govern everything, but ironically, those very rules cannot explain why they exist. To make things clearer, let's imagine a game of chess. You're watching a match, a truly brilliant game. You meticulously analyze every move, master the strategies, memorize all the rules, and then you become a grandmaster. But then suddenly someone asks you, why is there chess? Why does the board have 64 squares? Why are there these pieces? And why are there those rules? How would you answer? You can describe chess perfectly, down to every detail, but remember, the rules of chess didn't create it. They simply assume that chess already exists. Physics works in a similar way. The laws of physics, they're just like those rules. They describe patterns, they predict outcomes, they tell you what will happen if you take this action, or if nature operates in that way. But there's one thing they can't do. They can't tell you why there's a game happening at all. They simply assume that something already exists for us to describe. Let's consider another image, another example. Imagine an ant crawling on the surface of a balloon. A very intelligent ant, mind you. It walks around, measures distances, performs complex calculations. It discovers that this surface is curved, and it notices small dots on it gradually moving further apart. From this, it concludes that the surface is expanding. What a remarkable scientific achievement. Then that ant even calculates backward in time and declares, a very, very long time ago, everything was much closer together. Another astonishing scientific achievement. But can that ant explain why there's a balloon in the first place? Absolutely not. It can only build models of that balloon from within the world of the balloon itself. And we are exactly like that ant. We exist right inside this universe. We can describe the expansion of the universe, we can build models of the initial conditions, and we do physics exceptionally well. But then the biggest question emerges: why is there a universe? Is this the same kind of question as how the universe evolved? However, some people argue that such a question is entirely misguided. They contend that asking what happened before the Big Bang might be meaningless, much like asking what's south of the South Pole. Indeed, at some point, there's no more south to go. Okay, perhaps that argument is valid, but even if it is, pay close attention to this. The deeper, more fundamental question still remains. Even if we accept that time truly began with the Big Bang, why did it begin? Why does anything exist? Time, space, matter, the governing laws, anything at all? And this is where modern discussions start to become incredibly complex and elusive. You'll often hear people say that our universe emerged from nothing. Quantum fluctuations, vacuum energy, particles appearing and disappearing. Everyone seems to love this story, but let's slow down a bit and be honest with each other. Listen up. This is important. The quantum vacuum, what you might think of as nothing, isn't actually nothingness. I repeat, it is not nothingness. So what is it? It's a state, yes, the lowest possible energy state, but don't be mistaken. It has structure. It has its own rules. It contains fields, and those fields, my friends, are not nothing at all. Because if you have a field, then you already have something, don't you? So the next time someone claims the universe came from nothing, stop and ask them, what do you mean by nothing? If they're referring to the quantum vacuum, then I'm sorry, that's not nothingness. It's a complete physical system obeying strict laws. To make it easier to visualize, try thinking about this. I tell you, I just created a fist from nothing. Sounds extraordinary, doesn't it? But then you realize my hand was already there. I simply curled my fingers. The fist didn't appear from nothing. It was just an existing hand rearranged into a new configuration. Particles appearing from the vacuum are exactly the same. The vacuum is the hand and the particle is the fist. It's just a rearrangement of things that already exist. However, you still haven't explained why that hand existed in the first place, have you? So even if we could construct a complete theory of how universes might form, you'd still be pushed back to a similarly grim question. Why is there that system? Why are there those laws? Why are there those fields? In short, why is there anything at all? This is precisely the point many people want to avoid, because it seems to have no end. But that's exactly why it's so incredibly important. Now, let's move on to another puzzle, which at first glance seems unrelated, but actually is. Why is mathematics so remarkably effective at describing reality? This isn't some artificial mystery, it's a real question. We invent symbols, we build structures, we play with patterns in our minds, and then the universe behaves exactly like mathematics, sometimes not just approximately, but with absolute precision. It's as if the world speaks a mathematical language. Why is that? You might argue that, well, we simply choose the right kind of mathematics. Sure, that's part of the story, but it doesn't erase the strangeness, because that still means reality is orderly enough for us to grasp it with equations. Why isn't the universe pure chaos? Why are there stable rules? Why does it possess such profound regularity? Now, you're about to hear another big statement, one I want you to think carefully about. If we find a theory of everything, we will have answered all questions. I'm afraid that's not the case, because a theory of everything, no matter how grand, is still just a description. It describes relationships, it describes structure, it describes behavior, but it still leaves givens, even if you get the ultimate equation etched onto the side of the universe. You can still ask, why this equation and not another? And why are there any equations at all in the first place? Some people will answer you with a single word: obvious. They say the universe simply is for no reason, with no other explanation. That might be true, but notice what that answer actually does. It doesn't solve the mystery. It merely puts a label on the mystery and dismisses it. Sometimes that's an honest admission, and sometimes "I don't know" is the most truthful and clear answer. But I want you to see this, something deeper. Even if the so-called obvious truth is correct, the strangeness remains intact, because you are still standing amidst existence, and existence is still right here. Now let me take a moment to defend science. Nothing I've just said is against science at all. Science, my friends, is one of the greatest achievements humanity has ever created. It has given us medicine, it has given us electricity, it has given us this entire modern life. Physics has revealed the age of the universe, the intricate structure of the atom, and the true nature of light. It has taught us that time can dilate, space can curve, and tiny particles behave like waves. These are truly invaluable treasures of knowledge. But remember, science is fundamentally a method. How does it work? By seeking patterns, regularities, and governing laws. A law requires something to behave according to it. A pattern requires something to create that pattern. In other words, science needs a world to study, a world that already exists. You know, science can reveal to us how this universe operates, every single detail. But can it answer the deeper question, why does this world exist in the first place? Well, that's not a question science can answer. So what field does that question belong to? It's a metaphysical question, and metaphysics, simply put, is the study of the core nature of reality, not its specific mechanisms or internal details. To make it easier to visualize, I have a really interesting metaphor for you. Try to imagine a video game, but not just any ordinary game, rather one with an incredibly sophisticated and complex physics system. Now, in that beautiful virtual world, imagine there are conscious characters. They begin to explore their surroundings, diligently searching for the laws that govern it, and then they write equations to describe everything. They delve deeper, discovering fundamental laws, things akin to the game's source code. But with all that intelligence, could they ever prove the reason why this game exists? And would they ever see the programmer who created the game? Most likely not. Not because they're incompetent or foolish, but simply because they are living and existing within that very system. Because perhaps the system itself doesn't contain the story of its origin in the way they'd hoped to find it. Oh, I must clarify, I'm not implying that we're living in a simulation. Don't misunderstand me. What I mean is actually much simpler. We have certain limitations. We are part of the very thing we are trying to study, and perhaps there are questions we cannot answer while still inside that system. But here's the truly wonderful thing, do you know? That limitation is not something to be sad about at all. On the contrary, it's very honest. It clearly shows us where the stopping point is, where the boundary of understanding lies. Science, it's like a builder, diligently constructing a long, sturdy, and incredibly reliable road. But when it reaches the edge of that road, it cannot build any further. It's not because science has failed, but because it was never designed to do that job in the first place. And when you step beyond that boundary, you won't find ultimate answers. Instead, you'll be met with profound wonder. You'll feel a deep humility. You'll realize that this reality is far more profound than any model we could ever create. So, what does all of this change in your daily life? At first glance, perhaps not much. You still wake up each morning, still sip your coffee, still go to work, still love those around you. You still have countless daily tasks to face, but one thing it can change is how you stand, how you exist in this vast world. You can walk with a greater sense of wonder, not a fake or dramatic wonder, but a true, genuine astonishment. Because just think, the fact that anything exists at all is incredibly strange. And the amazing thing is, you exist right within that strangeness. You're not an outside observer. You are part of this great mystery. You are made of the very stuff that created everything. Just think. Every atom in your body was forged deep within the hearts of stars. Carbon, oxygen, iron, all tempered in the universe's colossal furnaces, then scattered by supernova explosions, later gathered by gravity, and finally shaped by time. But even that beautiful story still doesn't answer the why question. Why are there stars? Why is there matter? Why are there laws governing everything? Why is there time? This chain of questions just goes on until our minds have nowhere left to grasp. And you know what? That's perfectly okay. It's truly okay that we can't close every loop. It's okay that we have to live with an open question. I know some people hate that. They crave definitive answers, wanting the universe to be fully explained, as if it were a puzzle already solved. But look, there's something truly liberating here. It means that this reality is not exhausted. It means we haven't reached the bottom of understanding. It means there are infinitely more depths than all our explanations can grasp. And now, I want to end our story right where we began. You are here right now. And that truth, you know, it's not small at all. It is the greatest truth there is. All other truths depend on it for their existence. Have you ever stopped to think? Physics, for all its apparent intellectual prowess, doesn't explain why this universe exists. It merely describes what's happening on that stage. So, here's what I truly want you to ponder. When you grasp that science has its boundaries, will you feel a deeper yearning to explore, or simply a letdown? And you know what? Whichever feeling you lean towards, both are entirely legitimate. If you're burning with curiosity, that's fantastic, because that's the purest reaction a mind can have to the unknown. And if you feel disappointed, well, that's very human too. It simply shows you truly care, you truly yearn for a deeper understanding. And that fervent longing, that ceaseless urge to question why, is perhaps one of the most wondrous gifts the universe has given us. Because, just consider, this is truly phenomenal. Among the myriad things that exist, there is only one capable of reflecting on existence itself and posing the question, why does all of this exist? And you know, that is utterly phenomenal, a kind of beautiful madness in the best way we can possibly imagine.